Welcome to the All About Us podcast, the podcast where we deep dive into stories, insights, and wisdom that shape who we are as individuals, families, and communities. I'm your host, Carl Allen. Today, we're exploring a topic that touches every single one of us, whether we realize it or not: generational trauma. You know, we often hear phrases like "that runs in the family" or "the apple doesn't fall far from the tree." But what if some of those inherited patterns aren't just quirks or personality traits? What if they're actually unhealed wounds being passed down through generations? I'm joined today by Blanka Molnar, a conscious parenting coach, speaker, and founder of Awareness, a coaching company dedicated to helping parents heal multi-generational traumas and overcome the challenges of raising children in today's world. Blanka uses a unique blend of family constellation approach, meditation, and other holistic tools to help parents see remarkable results in breaking these generation cycles. The conversation is going to challenge how you think about family patterns, parenting, and the invisible threads that connect us to our ancestors. Whether you're a parent planning to become one, or simply curious about how your family history might be influencing your life today, this episode is for you. Blanka, thank you so much for being here with us today. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me, Carl. I'm doing great. I'm excited about this conversation.
Okay, Blanka, welcome to the All About Us podcast. Can you start telling our guests, our listeners, what led you to become a conscious parenting coach and focus specifically on generational trauma?
Sure. So I was originally born and raised in Budapest, Hungary, and I was only 5 years old when the Berlin Wall came down. So my country was originally a communist country when I was born, and that brought a lot of baggage with that.
Okay.
And then I was 26 after I graduated from university as an economist. I was working in corporate real estate. And I like to say that I had a midlife crisis when I was 26. I had my family around me. I had friends. I had a corporate job, everything you would think it's normal. But I was just not feeling well, like not physically, but more mentally.
Okay.
I was sobbing a lot under the shower, and I was like, it cannot be like this.
Okay.
So I decided that I moved to California to become an au pair and take care of kids. And that was my first dry run to actually experience firsthand as a caretaker. It wasn't just being a nanny. I was living with the family, so I spent a lot of time with the family. And I realized in one morning when we had multiple meltdowns already at 9 a.m., me included, not just the kids,
Okay.
that how much stuff actually we are passing on to our kids. As much as I wanted to be a loving and caring and patient au pair, which I was most of the times, but there were moments like when I was exhausted, tired, when we had a more challenging day, when I realized that my thoughts, my emotions, my reactions, knee-jerk reactions or default reactions were not actually mine in some sense, but it was coming more from my mom and my dad and back my generations from my grandmother.
Mhm.
And that scared me. And I stopped in that moment and I was like, I cannot do this. So I wanted to become a parent myself. So I was like, I have to do something about this. This cannot be it. And that's when I like jumped on or stepped on a more healing journey, spiritual journey, we can call it different way. And I started to journal, started to do meditation, started to do books, like whatever I that time was more on the spiritual realm, like the Four Agreements or the Power of Now. And slowly I realized that we have to heal ourselves and we have to go back, peel by the layers after layers to ask ourselves who we really are. And that's when we can really rewire our brain and parent in a different way than we were parented.
Okay, Blanca, for some of my guests, they may not have heard the term au pair. Can you explain what an au pair is to my listeners?
Absolutely. So au pair is like a nanny, but an au pair lives with the family.
Okay.
And many au pairs are actually coming from different countries and they have a gap year or something and they decide that they want to travel a little bit and spend time with kids.
Mhm.
So actually from Hungary, I moved to the US to California and I was living with the family and I provided caretaker and taking care of kids like 9 hours a day.
Okay. Now, a lot of people may not be familiar with the term generational trauma. What actually is generational trauma to you?
Sure. So generational trauma, based on what Bert Hellinger, who was the founder of Family Constellation, the method I'm using, he said that actually whatever is happening in our life today, if we have like emotional challenges, mental challenges, we have different conditions, we have physical conditions, we have autoimmune disease, cancer, ADHD, or we are attracting a certain behavior all the time. Let's say you are keep attracting married men in your life. He says that actually these challenges have a root cause that happened 5, 6, 7 generations back in the family.
Wow.
And yes, it's kind of scary, but also the thing is that you wouldn't know what happened if you are lucky, you would know your great grandparents, but how would you know that what really happened? And also there is another layer of historical events that happened. So for example, Great Depression, the First World War, Second World War, the Holocaust is still inherited actually in our DNA and it's still affecting our life today. So when people are saying that, oh, the past is the past, why we should dwell on it, why you should dwell on it, and why you should actually heal, not just dwell, because it's affecting your life and in a way that you wouldn't think that it affects.
What are some of the common signs that someone might be carrying generational trauma without even realizing it?
So patterns usually suggest to my clients to start to look for patterns. In severe cases. So for example, if you are like going into a new job and couple more months and everything seems to be fine, but people are starting to pick in on you. Okay, maybe then you go and I was like, I'd rather just quit. I try to find another job, but it happens in another job in the workplace. In another job, people are picking at you or they are not listening to you and you always dismissed when the promotion comes up. And then it's like when it's keep happening over and over again, or what I just mentioned, for example, you are keep attracting a certain behavior,
Mhm.
like you just keep attracting men who are not reachable and not emotionally available, or you have physical symptoms like autoimmune diseases and certain mental conditions. Those can be all signs when your kid is, for example, bullied in school. These can be all signs that you might carry something that doesn't belong to you in the first place.
Let's see. How do these traumas typically get passed down from one generation to the next? Is it always conscious or does it happen in ways we don't even notice? Because to me it seems like it's almost like it's genetic from what you're explaining. If we can inherit trauma from like our great great grandparents who we've never even met? Is it something which is genetic, or is this something like spiritual that's connected to, individuals as they're born? This kind of trauma follows that family.
Very great question. It can be both. So there has been some researches that trauma can be inherited in the DNA. And so what it means that, for example, what I like to bring up as like you are like this right now, you are having like fertility issues. And it happens that 5 generations back, the great grandmother passed away giving birth to a child. So how does it trickle down to you that actually giving birth or having a baby is lethal or it can be fatal? So you go to the doctor, you check out everything, you're physically fine, but something is subconsciously blocking your mind to be able to naturally conceive, for example. And it's because something happened and that had an effect on the future generations and on you too. So it can be inherited in the DNA like that, or spiritually. So our Bert Hellinger said that our loyalty and our love to our family is about everything. Even if you think that like you didn't like your parents or they were like cruel to you or they have severe cases, you still love them and you are still loyal and you are loyal to your ancestors. So you just carry their stuff. So it's spiritual and it can be inherited too.
Okay. Can you share an example of how a seemingly small pattern or behavior in a family might actually be rooted in deeper generational trauma? Well, I think you just did that actually.
Yes.
With that whole situation concerning, a grandmother not being able to properly give birth and passing. So you pretty much answered that question. What role does parenting play in either perpetuating or breaking these cycles?
So what I noticed that when you say that to parents that you have to heal first, they are like taken back. They are like, what do you mean about that? I just want you to fix my kids. I just want you to fix my partner. I just want you to fix my friend. But it's actually healing starts with you. And for example, parenting, first of all, how you were parented has a deep effect on you, how you parent today, because nobody is taught how you have to parent and nobody given a manual. And then you get a child and that child is maybe not how you expected would be.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you are a high extroverted person and you get an introverted baby. So it's a lot of learning curve. And we are trying to do our best, but what is our best? So what was the question?
Well, the question was, what roles do parenting play in either perpetuating or breaking these cycles?
Cycles. So what you have to do first is stop, pause, give yourself grace, and make a conscious decision that you want to do and be a better parent than you've been doing. And I know I'm very aware that there is so much pressure on parents, on moms and dads, both sides, to be great parents. But what I mean is actually your kids, in many cases, actually reacting to your energy, reacting to your behavior. Kids are actually picking up our energy so much better than you think, and we give credit them to. So you have to change and your kids will gonna change with it. Same with your partner. If you start to change and breaking those cycles and recognizing those triggers and healing those, or just ask questions that, okay, I'm about to yell, why I want to yell in this moment, what is really bugging me in this moment, that's healing in the first case.
Okay. Alrighty. You use the family constellation approach in your work. Can you explain what this method is and how it helps people identify generational patterns?
Sure. So family constellation is actually been around since the 1970s. And the founder is Bert Hellinger, who was a German psychologist. And he said that there is a root cause for our traumas today and our challenges today. And what we do, like you can do a group session or you can do a one-on-one. Currently, I'm working on a one-on-one basis with my clients. And they come to me and they say that here are the couple things I'm really struggling with in my life. And then I start to test that we have to work with the current family or like partners, kids first, or we have to go back to parents, or we actually have to go back further down on the line, maybe 7 generations back, to find that root cause where something happened that we can heal and can give them back to the original person. And then I start to test with, I use actually colored papers. Some people are using little foot figures, but I start to test if it was like a family event or it was more like a historical event. Sometimes it's actually like somebody came back from the Second World War and they survived, but everybody else died around them. So they have massive survival guilt. And that's why, for example, they emotionally shut down. And when we go back in conversations on a soul level, we are healing that trauma and we give back what belongs to the person who actually carried or started that on the first place.
Now, I have a question. Does this work? Say you only knew your parents. Say you never knew your grandparents or your great grandparents, more or less anyone that preceded them. Does this method still work? And, accessing, traumas that come from ancestors that you don't even know?
Absolutely. And the beauty of family constellation therapy, that even if you don't speak with your parents today because you just wanted to cut them out of your life, we can still work with them and we can still heal. And you never even have to pick up the phone. So people you're working with don't have to be present. You, as we mentioned at the beginning, you might even don't know who were your great grandparents or even further. So we don't need to know them as such, because the constellation field we are working with opens up for you and for me, and information, what needs to guide us in that moment, will be present. That's why it's like, it's so hard to explain because it sounds very woo-woo, but even if you read books about family constellation, they cannot explain what's working, but it's working. And people are asking me sometimes that, is it not just like you are coming up like stories from your head, like, oh, this sounds like crazy. The funny thing is that people react when I say that I see this, I feel this, they start to feel things and they are coming up with emotions. And it's like, oh, I want to hug that person, or no, I want to push push away that person. And as soon as they yawn, for example, yawning, crying, all these are coming up that, oh, wow, this sounds really true, or this resonates with me. So yes, it works with anybody who passed away because we are working on a soul level. We are not. Yeah.
But it seems like that requires a certain sensitivity level on your part there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes people don't believe in these, and that's absolutely fine. It has to be, you don't even have to believe in this, but if you come to a session with an open mind, because many of my clients never done this before, they haven't heard about it. It's much more common in Europe or in South America, but not in the US. And I was just try it. Just come to a session and try it one time with an open mind, and we shall see what happens.
Okay. What does the healing process typically look like for someone who's just beginning to recognize these patterns in their own life?
So already one session can bring you relief. It doesn't resolve the whole problem, especially if you are talking about very complex problems like cancer or ADHD or autoimmune diseases. But a session is usually 1.5 hours and you already feel some kind of relief at the end. So it depends on where you are on your journey, how much you are ready to process, because I cannot push you. It's like we always work as much as you are available and you are ready to release. And it can be like one session is already helping you a lot and you are like, I'm fine right now, I don't want to push this more. That's absolutely fine. But I have clients with complex traumas who are coming back for the 10th session and they are constantly healing, but they had a lot of trauma and baggage.
Okay. How do meditation and other holistic tools fit into this healing work?
So I use meditation or other visualizing techniques when, for example, we are releasing different emotions. And there are some techniques when we just want to bring it up to the surface. And so many of my clients don't want to do that. They are just afraid that what if, when I say that, for example, imagine that you are snapping somebody who did that to you, but was, for example, a grandfather. And they are like, oh, I cannot do that. They were my grandfather. And like, I just cannot. And sometimes we just need to let and give permission to the other person that it's a safe environment and you can do it right now. And we just pop up that lid so it can come up, because when you suppress feelings and emotions, they are like sneakily causing troubles in your life. So you have to pop up that lid, let it out in a healthy way, because when we are suppressing and it comes out in an unhealthy way, that's when people are like going out to the streets and they are like driving like crazy and road raging, because it's not an outlet for their rage. So meditation, visualization, journaling. I love writing letters, for example. Sometimes I give the homework to my clients that if you feel, it's not necessary, it's not needed, but if you feel, you can write a letter to that person saying thank you, saying like, this was really hurting me. And that's also helping processing their experiences, integrating their parts, and going through all sorts of a variety of emotions and feeling that happened.
Now, you've stated that this is well known in Germany and also South America, but not well known here. And from my understanding, Germany is a very religious location. South America is a very religious location also. But here in America, it kind of like when people think of religion, they have a very, very negative perception of things that might be esoteric or holistic. Do you ever run into, that type of, how can I say it, a boundary where people find it hard to embrace this type of experience or this type of treatment because they say, well, oh, I'm religious. I don't believe in things that are kind of like esoteric or holistic. Do you ever run into any resistance concerning that here in the United States?
Absolutely. I'm in Texas, very religious states, but I like to talk about family constellation because I know that it's a very transformative and really magical method that can actually accelerate your healing so much. It can reduce the years what you spend in therapy, because in therapy you don't always know that what happened 5 generations back. You are working with the present. And I explain that, and they always have the decision to make that this is something they would like to still try or not. On my webpage, you can read, I have a point that is this against God? It's not against God. It's a healing. It's a different kind of non-traditional way of healing, but it's definitely not against God. Yes, I got that a lot. I have people who are like, no, this is not what I believe in, and I respect that. There are a lot of people who don't believe in this, and that's absolutely fine. It's not their healing modality.
Okay. When one parent starts doing this healing work, how does it typically affect the rest of the family, especially the children?
Great question. Actually, family constellation works forward and backward. So, for example, I did a lot of healing, and that did healing on my ancestors, but also it was healing my daughter because she doesn't need to carry further anyway what I was carrying. So, and the interesting thing that, for example, it affects my brother, it affects my cousins of my mom's side because we were working on that area of the family. So one person doing the healing is actually healing the whole web, like doing the whole network.
Amazing. What advice do you have for parents who want to break generational cycles but are facing resistance from other family members?
Don't tell. They don't.
They don't have to know from what you're teaching.
They don't have to know.
Exactly.
Don't tell them. When I started my healing journey, my family was so against it because obviously I started to break the cycle, and it was a different psychological dynamics that I was breaking. But I started to do it, and I was like, this is my life. It's my responsibility. I want to be a better parent. So whatever I'm doing, it's affecting you in a good way, but not in a bad way or anything. You are not paying for my modalities or therapy. So it's my life. It's my responsibility, and I want to do this way. And you don't have to tell them. So that's my advice, that you are an adult and you are doing it, and that's absolutely fine.
How can someone start this work even if they don't have complete information about their family history or if their family secrets? So you covered this. It's not necessary. You discover, you unpack all this as you go through the process. What are some practical steps someone could take today if they suspect they're dealing with generational trauma?
So if you are not ready to jump in with a holistic modality like Family Constellation, start to journal, start to look for your triggers. And pause and breathing is actually magical. Just even taking 3 big deep breaths before you want to yell at your kids, for example, it's magical. Because it calms your nervous system, it calms their nervous system, because if you can act from a more neutral, emotionally better place, it's already healing.
Is there any particular way to determine whether what you're passing on to your children is your own childhood wounds or versus it being a generation? How do you tell?
That's you cannot tell that which one is which. So, and sometimes, for example, it's actually something skips you and it comes out at your children's life. So it might pass me because I didn't need that lesson, but my child decides that, hey, I can carry this for my ancestors, so I will just pick it up. So for example, what happened that I was healing our daughter because my husband's dad passed away from brain cancer and the stroke after that, and my daughter decided that she would just carry that and that healing, or not even the healing, that trauma that happened because my husband didn't process it like properly. So my daughter stepped in. So we had to put back everything in order, that this is not your trauma to carry. We have to give it back to great grandfather for the grandmother.
How has doing this work changed your own parenting and family relationships?
It made me a more patient and more aware mom. I'm more conscious. It doesn't mean that I'm perfect. No, I yell at my kids too. My kid, not kids, I have one. So I'm, yes, sometimes. But what it made me realize that yelling is not about her, it's about me. And how can I heal that? And I can do differently. Like, for example, when I yell, I reflect that, okay, why I just needed yelling right in this moment. And I just sit down even with my 2-year-old toddler, and I say to her that, I'm sorry, this was not about you. It was mommy couldn't regulate her emotions, and this is what happened. So I'm leading with example for my daughter that it's not being perfect. It's not like not yelling all the time or not fussing at all or something like that, but it's about how you can do it in a more conscious way.
What do you feel is the most challenging part of this work for a new client who's coming to you and hearing this for the first time?
Can you please repeat that?
What is the most challenging part of this work for most people when they come and meet you for the first time and you introduce them to this method? What is it? What's the hardest thing for them to understand or accept about this work?
First of all, as a parent, you have very limited time in most of the cases. So people are like, I don't have time for this. Why should I heal myself? And embarking on a healing journey, it's not like a one-off. It's not like I go to the gym and I'm like, do a boxing class and I'm done. It's a process. It's a marathon. And for some people, it can be like, you just mentioned that and they are like, I'm exhausted to hear that. But what they don't understand, that you are already exhausted. You are already exhausted because you are in a yelling, shaming, guilt, I will do better cycle. Or if you keep going back just because you say that, okay, from tomorrow I will not gonna yell, or I will not let my kids march over me, it will not gonna change. You have to change something in you, and you have to heal something consciously to change. So you are already spending so much time and energy quarreling, bargaining, yelling, doing something, and you are keep repeating the same cycle. So why not take some time to try to do it differently and starting healing in a different way for a long-term effect?
Can you share a short story about a family transformation that you witnessed during one of your sessions?
I have been working with a mom, and we recognized that actually she had more resentment toward her daughter than she admitted. And that when I bring up something like that, people are like, no, I love my daughter. It's not about not loving your child. It's about like subconsciously, you know that your life might be easier. You would have more money, you would have more free time, so you might feel some resentment. And we started to heal that resentment. She called me next day that out of her nowhere, her 7-year-old sat down with her and she said that, Mommy, I need to talk with you. And they had a fantastic 2-hour conversation with a 7-year-old out of nowhere. And they cleared the air in so many things because my client will manage to come and listen and be present for a more conscious space when she was actually connecting with her daughter more instead of like, I'm angry at you, I don't want to hear what you are saying.
Over time, generations change. The way people live changes. We're in like the social media culture now where kids really don't get out a whole lot and play with each other. In fact, a lot of their interaction, even with other children, is really at school. Are there some generational trauma trends that you've been seeing that had really have been developing over the last 5 to 10 years, or you haven't seen anything significant because this really jumps back generations? So what we're going through in our daily lives right now may not be as relative as much as our family past.
So what I definitely see that the generation that is parenting right now, the Gen X, the millennials, and the Gen Zs are more aware. And there are movies like the It Ends With Us or It Starts With Us when people more consciously decide that we have to do something differently. What I see right now that from a very strict parenting, we are swinging into the laissez-faire, just do, no discipline, no boundaries kind of parenting. And people are the baby boomers are making a joke of the Gen Z and millennial parents that, oh, they are just like whatever. But so what I would love to see parents is actually finding that love the golden mean, that balance between I can parent from a deeper, like true self instead of like I just want to do complete opposite what I was told to do.
So kind of like blending, maybe take the best.
Blending, yes. So it's not like it's bad or right. It's nothing red and right in parenting. Especially, it's more like knowing who you are and what works for you, and more importantly, what works for your child. And how can you parent without all the noise? There are so many amazing influencers and social media people who are out there teaching us about parenting, but you have to be able to filter from like, okay, this might not work for us, this works for us because this is our family unit, and I can decide about that.
What do you see as the biggest opportunity for families to do this healing work?
Uh-oh. Can we stop for a moment? Yeah, just for a second.
Go ahead. That's fine. We can edit.
Apologies, thundering.
Oh no, I have children also, so I understand. For if we're getting close to the end, we're going to be closing up. I forgot to tell you that towards the end, I have an area of the show where you get to ask me 3 questions. So I want you to think of 3 questions to ask me. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so we're going to resume the show from this point. Okay, what do you see as the biggest advantages for families who are willing to do this healing work?
It's lots of bonding happening. What I see is like you can connect from a so much more profound and deeper way, and it's so much like happier. And yeah, I would say that it's a so much more bonding experience when you manage to actually not just being reactive, but proactively building those relationships and long-term relationship with your kids.
Okay, what would you say to parents that already feel like I'm dealing with so much of just dealing with the problem within my own household and the problems me and my child are having? I don't have time to deal with, dealing with generational trauma being generated from my ancestors. What would you tell them to kind of help them decide that, this is something that you really need to do?
So you can suppress those, but they are running your life and you might not even know about that. So I always tell to my clients that just because you put it into the little drawer, it doesn't mean that it doesn't stink. and it doesn't run as an autopilot in your life. These patterns are usually wired in your brain and they are subconscious. You are like, for example, I see so many moms taking their kids to different specialists, occupational therapy and other stuff, speech therapy. You are already spending time to heal this, but you are healing this in a traditional way, which most of us do, because you go to the doctors, you go to the therapist, you do like medication. But what if there is an opportunity to heal that in a different way? But it takes actually an open mind to say that, you know what, I tried this. Instead of like medicating my ADHD child, I try something different. It takes a lot of courage to actually say that I will try this for our healing, for my mental healing and for my kids.
What would you say to people of my culture, African Americans, or people who are Hispanic or of other different cultures? Because see, I know from experience, a lot of us aren't into counsel, psychiatrists, that just really has never been a big part of our culture. What can you share with people who of a diverse culture like mine? What can you tell them to make them feel more open and available to this type of work to help them heal their inner? What would you tell them?
So I always tell to parents, finally, it's actually more acceptable to have psychologists or different therapists or heal. People were like, a long time ago, they were like, oh, you go to a psychologist, it's like, cuckoo, are you local? And it's like, but when I say to everybody that having a therapist or a holistic therapist or doing journaling or meditation, it's like you go to the gym for your body. And what do you do about your brain and your mind? What do you do for your soul? It's like having a therapist, having somebody who is not emotionally involved, because people are like, oh, I might just share it with my parents or I just share it with my friends. First of all, your parents probably not trained unless they are therapists, or your friends are not trained to be therapists. And there is a certain level they can be there for you and they love you. So their advice come from a place of usually from love and from their own filters. So sometimes you need somebody who's emotionally uninvolved in that situation. And what I would say that immigration, for example, it's a huge actually in generational traumas. So leaving a country and living in a different country, lots of survival guilt, lots of shame, lots of like cutting roots that it really needs conscious healing. I left my country and I had to go through that, okay, I left everybody behind to have a better life. And people who are like second, third, fourth generation living here in the US, I would say that the US history is loaded with heavy stuff. So slavery is still actually in the DNA, and racism is still in the DNA. So this needs to be healed, and not just on a systemic level, of course, systemic level too, but you can do something on an individual level. And when more and more people start to heal individually, that's when real change is coming.
That's great. That's great. I like that. I like that. Now we're going into this part of the show called football. You get to ask me 3 questions. So what would be the 3 questions you would like to ask me?
So do you know if you have any generational trauma in your family?
I'm quite sure I do. Quite sure. Yes, I have personal trauma, and I'm quite sure there's some generational trauma because my mother, actually, her mother and father died before she was 5 years old. So she basically got raised by her grandparents. And so just the fact that my mother wasn't raised by her mother and father, she was raised by grandparents that had their own set of kids. And then another set of her cousins, who mother and father died, was also integrated into that family. So my mother, she didn't know how to be, a mother, or she didn't have a mother or a father. She was raised by her grandparents. So I'm quite sure there's generational trauma, in my family. Second question.
Have you done any healing about that?
No, I haven't done any healing about that. And that's something that I'll probably have to get with you on. Third question.
Third question, what is your favorite color?
My favorite color has always been blue. And lighter shades of blue, like sky blue, it's sky. Those are that's my favorite color, actually.
Sounds good.
Okay. Where can our listeners learn more about your work and connect with Awareness?
So the first good point to start is my webpage, Awareness. And if you feel that you would like to learn more about Family Constellation, I'm constantly blogging about it, and there are questions, answers on my webpage. And if you would like to talk to me about this, I'm happy to have a conversation. You can book a free call, a 15-minute chat to see if this is the right modality for you and you want to learn and heal with Family Constellation or with conscious parenting coaching. I usually say that with Family Constellation, we work on the past. With the conscious parenting coaching, we are working on your present and your future.
Okay, listeners, all of her information is going to be on the promos that we always, put online. So all of her contact information will be on the promos. So you'll be able to go there and get the information you need that will guide you to this sort of training. Blanka, if you could leave our listeners with one key insight about generational healing, what would it be?
It starts with you. It absolutely, you can have the responsibility to take for your own healing and you can heal.
What's next for you in your mission to help families heal these deep patterns?
So this year I chose the word elevate for my business and for my life. So podcasts like yours and being more out and talking about Family Constellation and what can it do for people and actually why is it so important to heal generational trauma is my mission this year.
Well, this has been, very eye-opening for me, and I'll probably be contacting you sometime in the near future. And I hope some of my other listeners out there, we come from various different cultural backgrounds,
Yes.
and a lot of us don't have a lot of experience dealing with, counseling and various different alternative therapies to help us work out our family issues. This has been such an eye-opening conversation. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and helping us understand how we can break these generational cycles for ourselves and our family. For our listeners, we want you to learn more about Blanka's work. You can visit her website at awareness.net. That's AWARENEST.net. We also include that link in our show notes along with the resources Blanka mentioned during our conversation. Before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone that healing generational trauma isn't about blaming previous generations or dwelling in the past. As Blanka has shown us, it's about understanding our patterns so we can consciously choose a different path forward. It's about giving ourselves and our children the gift of awareness and healing. If today's conversation resonated with you, please share this episode with someone who might benefit from it. And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts. You can reach out to us through our website or social media. We read every message, and your feedback helps shape future shows. Thanks for joining us on the All About Us podcast. I'm Carl Allen, and remember, understanding your past empowers us to create a better future. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
Thank you so much.
Good day.